Do you have any favorite plugins that you use while editing a podcast? Today I'm going to share one that I use almost all the time. What's happening, podcasters? This is 1000 Podcasters, and I'm Bryan. I'm a podcaster and a podcast editor, and I want to see you be successful with your podcast. This particular episode is part of David Hooper's 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge over at Big Podcast, and also part of National Podcast Post Month. You'll find links to both of those in the episode notes. As part of the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge, I have daily challenges, daily assignments to do things with this particular show, and today is no exception. I have an assignment, but I'm actually going to take a little bit of liberty with it because I don't think that that particular assignment was going to serve you very well. So what's the assignment? Well, today in David Hooper's challenge, he's talking about sales, and he's kind of making fun a little bit of the typical mattress sales thing that you might have heard on other podcasts. And he pulls up the information for Casper. It's made by humans. It's good for sleep, all that kind of stuff. And he goes through some of the talking points. And then the assignment was to do it differently. And so he gave an example of how he might have done a sales pitch for a Casper mattress if they had sponsored his show. And he did a great job of it. And then the assignment for me was to go and do the same kind of thing, make up a story if I've never had a Casper experience and share that with you. But the truth is, first off, I don't have a Casper experience, and I'm not very comfortable making one up. And second, I don't think that's going to serve you very well. And I want to mention this because this is part of your job as a podcast host. It's your job to make sure that what you do is the best thing that you can for your audience. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to bridge that gap, to do the challenge, to share my enthusiasm for something, and to talk about the talking points, but in a way that's useful and meaningful to you, but also not just do a mattress pitch, because that's not what I'm into. So I thought maybe I would talk about a plugin that I use all the time. And this is a plugin that I'm actually running right now. I use it almost every single episode, almost every single track that I produce. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today. But first, I want to mention who introduced me to this plugin. Several years ago, I took part in Chris Curran's podcast engineering school. And while we were in that school, he went through a lot of the tools that were in his workflow, a lot of different plugins, a lot of different pieces like that. And also as part of that class, I was able to stay in the alumni Slack channel. So I was able to stay connected to Chris and to both the old students as well as the new students. And when this particular plugin came out, he checked it out and he mentioned that it was a great one. So I went and checked it out as well. So I was introduced by Chris Curran to the Sheps Omni channel. Now, if you're not familiar with plugins, I'll explain a little bit about that. And also, as I'm going through this, I'm going to try and stay away from jargon. But if I say something that doesn't make sense, just hit me up and let me know, and I'll try and explain that. You can reach me, Bryan, at toptieraudio.com, and I'll be glad to do that. A plugin, if you're working in your favorite editor or your favorite digital audio workstation, whatever is it that you work in, a plugin is what would apply an effect to a track. And you might think of them as things like compressors or equalization or something else. This is no exception, except that if you're not familiar with a channel strip, it's kind of like multiple plugins all in one. If you think about the old mixing consoles, you might have seen them in pictures of a studio. You might have seen them at a live event where you've got somebody in the back twiddling a bunch of knobs with a bunch of sliders and buttons and lights and everything. Each one of those things that they're connected to, one for the guitar, one for the singer, whatever, each one of those is called a channel strip. And it's just all of the effects can be applied to that channel. The same kind of thing is available in the digital world. There are things called channel strips, and what they are is basically multiple effects all bundled into one, similar to what you might have found on a mixing board or a console back in the day. The Sheps Omnichannel, though, is really pretty unique in that it has a lot of functionality put into one package, and it's very, very customizable. And I'll share a little bit with you about how I use this. I'm not going to go through all of the features because, man, there are a lot, but I'm going to share some of the things that I find the most valuable. The first one, I really like that there's a way to create what's called saturation. If you've ever listened to some of the songs that are recorded, it'll sound like the person that's singing into the mic is really just kind of there's like a little bit of a buzz or an electricity to their voice. A lot of times that's delivered through saturation, and that's one of the things that's available in this particular plugin. But as part of that same piece, this is called the preamp stage. This is where, wow, I got into the jargon there. I guess I'll skip the preamp conversation for right now because I don't want to go too far into that. But there's also the ability to reduce some of the lower frequencies, the low bass in somebody's voice. And the way I typically use this, I'll put it on most tracks because a lot of times if there's an air conditioner or a truck driving by or something like that, a lot of times the frequencies that a microphone will pick up will be that. And by using that, it's called a high pass filter or a low cut filter. By using that, I'm able to reduce some of that. One other thing I like, I get a lot of recordings where people's S's are really, really strong. And so I'll have to do some things to reduce that. This particular plugin has not one, but actually two different Deesser modules. They're all kind of stacked into one, but it has the ability to do two. And the reason that's important is because sometimes if you overdo the de-essing or you do it incorrectly, it'll sound like you're creating somebody with a lisp. But by having two of them, I can approach them a little bit differently and do a pretty transparent job of reducing that. This particular plugin has equalization. That means that for my voice, I can boost the high end a little bit. I can reduce the low end a little bit so that I don't sound like a big radio guy when I'm coming through on this particular microphone. There's also a compressor that makes it possible for the voice to sound more consistent and a little bit more present and kind of in your face, if you will. And this actually has several different ways that you can approach it. This is going to get a little bit nerdy. I'm sorry about that. There's also a limiter, which means that if somebody's voice gets really, really loud, it will keep it from creating distortion. So again, a really cool thing. And if that's not enough, if you don't have enough already tied up in this one plugin, there's also the ability to use this plugin to bring in another plugin all within the same thing. This is a really, really cool plugin. I seriously use this on just about every single track. By the time you hear this plugin will have been applied to what I'm doing as well. It's a really powerful tool, and it's just crazy. I've actually got a link in the episode notes for you to go check it out. It's the Sheps Omni channel by Waves, and I really do think this is a great plugin. Typically, it runs about $150, which is not inexpensive. Right now, it's on sale for $99. I'll just let you know as I'm recording this, there's a good chance within the next week or so it's going to go on a serious sale because we're approaching Thanksgiving here in the U.S., and a lot of things go on sale, so you might want to keep your eye out for that as well. And also, in the episode notes, I have the ability to give you a 10% discount. I have an affiliate code in there. If you're interested in grabbing this particular plugin and getting a 10% discount, I recommend that you do that. That link is in the episode notes, and you just click that link, go there, find the Sheps Omni channel. There will be a promotional code that you can put in when you make your purchase. You put in that promo code, it'll take the 10% off. I'll get a little bit for that doing that as well, but you'll get that 10% off. And then you can have this plugin in your arsenal. There are a lot of great videos out there on how to use all of the different parts of it. And believe me, there's way more than what I got into. Even the way I use it, I probably don't use more than about 50 to 60% of the functionality that's in this tool. It's just really that incredible. And I really think that it's great. As far as for this particular assignment, I hope that was valuable for you. I hope that when I talked about the Sheps Omni channel, that it was actually something that was useful for you. And if it benefits both of us, that's great. How about you, though? Do you have a favorite plugin or a podcasting tool? I'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email. It's bryan@toptieraudio.com. And if there's something that you'd like to hear me talk about, let me know. bryan@toptieraudio.com, the easiest way to email me. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at toptieraudio.com. If you don't want to email me, you'll find links to my social profiles. You'll find a way to set up a consultation if you'd like to talk to me about how we can work together, about perhaps a consultation, or maybe about having me help you launch or edit for your show. All of that stuff is available at toptieraudio.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and make a great podcast.